welcome back to another episode of BloxFam Breakthroughs. I'm Jessi, the founder and creative director of This Way to Fabulous, and I am obsessed with helping female entrepreneurs, bring their dreams and put them into action by helping them create really solid foundations in their brand before they go ahead and throw their marketing or their money into growth marketing, because it's very it goes hand in hand, and way too many people are throwing their money into growth marketing before they even have a strong foundation. So I am here today with Denise, who is an author, speaker, celebration of life coordinator, and tribute videographer. So Denise here is like holy energy, holy vibes, holy, I was magnetized to her, oh my gosh, she is a fellow castmate of mine from season 17 of TheBlox, and she is here today to talk with me about, our time on the show, but more importantly, kind of what we took out of the show and kind of what we're doing now in real time after filming. So for some perspective, July, August, September, October, we are almost exactly 3 months away or out from the completion of our filming of season 17. So it's been really crazy for me over here. So I cannot wait to hear from Denise about what life is like for her right now. So, Denise, before we kind of dive into all of the goods, why don't you give everybody just a quick synopsis, who you are, what you do, basically what we had to do 100 times while we were filming.
I'm out of practice after that, but I'm a death disruptor. I'm disrupting the industry around death and dying. I promote life as a surprise party and death as a party hop. It's not party over for, it's party over for the body, but the spirit party hops onto the next surprise venue. And so I'm changing the conversation, expectation, and experience around death and dying with a different conversation, a different way of looking at it. If you live differently, you'll die differently. And I'm very committed and passionate about pushing the needle on that.
Yes. Okay. So one thing I want to just kind of put some exclamation marks on is that she's changing the conversation. So I think now, hindsight's 2020. And I think that there were, certain people while we were filming that I was very just viscerally magnetized to, and I'm starting to realize that those people were people who are change makers. They are people who are interested in disrupting the industry that they're in, and making a new rule book, or making a just a different way of looking at, talking about all of those things. So obviously Denise she's so much energy, but now that she just said that, I am vibing so hard with the change maker aspect of that, because we are actually building out a mastermind right now that is for change makers, and I'm realizing that is my passion, is really kind of attracting and pouring into those of us who really want to make a difference in the community, in the industry, in the world. We want to leave the world a better place than it was when we were in it, and I freaking love that. All right, so Denise, why don't you give us a little background here of where were you at before TheBlox, before we went to go film? What season of business were you in at that point?
I've launched, but still very early. I mean, people want to talk about making more money or finding the love of their life or getting healthier. They still don't want to talk about what, the end of this
Yeah.
experience, before they go on to the next. I was probably discouraged and wondering if I'm going to be able to do the vision that I've been given, as far as knowing what's possible and what are the steps in getting there, and more grounded. As much as a Tasmanian unicorn can be grounded, at least more clarity and more structure and a process, which is very challenging for me. I don't want to get too far off of your questions, but even at the Blocks experience, I have a way of disrupting the conversation, or the plan of what the conversation is going to be. I was talking to somebody from the Blocks earlier today, and a lot of times we didn't get through the questions when I was in the seat of the pod. And it's not because I'm intentionally trying to distract or pull away from those questions. The conversation naturally goes that way, and I'm very go with the flow surprise party thing. Like that's getting in the way of the business part, like not having a
True.
plan and following that strategy or whatever. Very much, I don't know if it's age, I don't know if it's, wisdom, I don't know if it's the place that I am in life to go with the flow. Like I've had so much disruption and so much stress or overwhelm, I don't even like those words, that I'm not tapping into them. So whatever feels right and natural is going to give me joy today. I'm operating from that place of today because I am so fixated on if today were my last. None of us know when the party hop's going to happen. Everybody I think operates from a place where they think they're going to have a heads up, like a diagnosis or a sense of
Yeah.
urgency, or they get to a point in their age and it's like, well, it's getting close. And that may or may not be the case. And I'm cognizant and very much aware of that I live my life. Like I ask myself in the morning and I get up, like if this were my last day, what would I do? And so if it's um I guess, if it's not like be on the computer creating a website, I'm not doing it. Which I get to do. I mean,
Yeah.
I may think I handed get to, I get to bands to everybody when you feel like you have to do something. And I love creating. I love getting on there. Spring and summer are tough. I want to be outside doing things outside. And if I can take my computer out to the hammock, great. And if it's, planting a plant. So when it comes to entrepreneurship and business, that's, probably what this Tasman unicorn gets tripped up on is the structure and, um, you know, thinking
But you're
about
you're in
business
good
and
company. I mean, we all feel that in a certain aspect, like I this last year have done a lot more of taking my laptop outside and working on my hammock because I know I need to be getting some work done, but I also like feel this need to be outside and I know I work better out there sometimes because there's less distractions. There's less of a like, oh my god, my desk over here is like a hot mess and it's like staring at me while I'm sitting here and just like all the things and it's been really helpful for me to kind of do that, to think a little bit clearer. So I had the pleasure of learning more about Denise's backstory, but I would love for you to share with the viewers a little bit about the backstory of how you got here. Why are you so passionate about disrupting this industry and really changing the conversation? Because I think it's truly amazing.
I'm a mother of five, and my oldest daughter, when she was 12 years old, was diagnosed with leukemia in 2005. And like a spiritual awakening happened that day. I feel like I've always been connected with God or the creator or life in a different way, or maybe beyond my years kind of way. I feel like it goes way back. And hearing an internal voice or guidance or wisdom from the day of her diagnosis through the 3 years of her journey, um, neither of us, when we knew the time was coming that she was getting ready to party hop, it's going to sound crazy. We're sad. We had an acceptance, like a surrender of what we could change and what we couldn't at that point, what we came here to do. I literally did hear that internal voice say that her purpose was being served in that way in order for me to serve mine. I have her on video talking about, me being an inspiration to her and everybody that knows me. Like I have these things that fuel me to keep doing what I'm doing. Um, when it comes to death, we were living differently, finding the gift in everything, not defining it as a battle with cancer or tragic or any of those things. That when it came time for her to party hop, and this language around it came after she party hopped actually, but she dreamt that she was a star in the hospital and she didn't want people to be sad or worried about her. She wanted to be cremated. And we did have a timeline. We did know that it was imminent and it was close. So I sent out a memo. We weren't going to do a visitation or funeral. We were going to celebrate Heaven's Newest Star with a red carpet premiere of her life tribute video down at the Grand, which is a historical theater in town. And it was a standing room only event. It was on a Sunday. People would reach out to me. We used Caring Bridge back then, which was like a before, this is before Facebook. I mean, Facebook was just getting started, but that was like the platform to reach lots of people and give them an announcement. And so, they wanted to know how to come dressed, and it was on a Sunday. So I told them to come dressed like it was Wacky Wednesday, and we would call it Silly Sunday. And so we had people streaming in there. Um, attending a funeral, not looking like they were. And Janae got to hear and see and feel everybody's love. She party hopped a week after that event. And it just showed me what's possible when it comes to someone getting ready to party hop, and to have the conversation on what you want so that it can be created. Even before Janae's time, about a year before Janae party hop, my grandmother did. And I remember when we were leaving the house to head to the funeral home, I told the kids to put on the most colorful things they had in their closet. Everybody's gonna be wearing black and be sad, and we were gonna celebrate that. Our mamaw had colored our lives, and we were gonna focus more on the celebration than the grief or the mourning. And that was a year before, not thinking that I would be doing the same for my daughter, like a year later, but knowing, that seed had been planted. My kids remembered it for years after. And in 2016, I thought maybe I was getting ready to party hop, and I didn't want my boys standing in a visitation line hearing "I'm sorry for your loss" for hours. I didn't want the traditional thing that our culture has taught us to do, not given us permission to be lighthearted or have fun or to celebrate more than grieve, and think that there's stages of grief. And, maybe there are for some people, but there wasn't for me. And wanting people to know that it's okay to laugh about it, to talk about it, to plan for it, that it's actually the it's the best party you could plan for yourself. I mean, I have a budget to plan a party for my kids, the celebration party that's like my party gift for them in a way that I don't have now. And I don't want to be the subject of a party. I don't, a birthday party or whatever. But I
Mhm.
do want anybody that comes to celebrate or to support my kids to have the evidence that I lived a full life, and to leave there knowing something about me. The way our culture is, I've been to more funerals of people that I didn't know than I do. Like I knew the wife, I knew the mother, I knew the father, the daughter, but I didn't know them. And I left the funeral not knowing anything about them. I listened to a eulogy say I didn't know so and so, but what I found out from the family this week, and that always was a rub for me, even before I decided to disrupt the business and do something about it. Um, and nobody will leave my celebration of life or the surprise party that I've planned for my boys, not knowing me and being inspired or uplifted by the zany life I've lived, and the fact that I have thought about it so far ahead and planned something that my hope is they'll leave there and want to do the same. Or before I even party hop, that people understand that it can be a really fun thing, like a fun party. You like the sky's the limit, as crazy as you want to get with details, and to have that conversation. My boys know. So I have 4 living children, and they know the first one that finds out that I have exhaled for the last time and that I've party hopped, they don't call their brothers and say, "Mom's gone, she's dead, we've lost her." They know when they get a call from one of their brothers and they hear it's party time, what that means. And I love it. I love that that's going to be the experience that I leave for them. And it's a legacy that I want a lot of people to do, to leave something that's fun, to have the conversation, even if it's traditional, have the conversation. My dad party hopped last year. And as we were waiting to take him off the machines, my mom said that, they had never talked about it. They didn't have life insurance. And, he's 84, she's 80. And it's not a subject to avoid. It's going to happen. And it makes it so much harder for the ones left. That if my dad had simply said, "Jan, I don't want you dropping 3,000 on a headstone, or 5,000 on a casket, and another 2,000 on something that keeps water from getting to," I mean, if he had simply said that, she wouldn't have been using money that she didn't feel like she had, and feeling like she needed to give him what he deserved. She didn't have, because he hadn't said that to her. Would have been
Yeah.
one conversation, where you want it to be, what you want to happen. It can be simple, it can be extravagant, but have the conversation. And that, that's primarily what I'm promoting. And if you want to have fun with it, then my tagline is, "You'll be the life of the party when you're dead," with my services. But
Yeah. No, I think it's, forcing people to do what they don't want to do is kind of part of our job in this world, like kind of like we're all responsible for ourselves, but I feel like we're also responsible to take our own lessons and our own energy, and to pour that into others as well, because, you know, You don't
It's
know what you
definitely
don't know.
irresponsible to leave your family with the hardest thing that they're going to experience, to leave them with unanswered questions. That's what's irresponsible. When I divorced, the first thing that I did, and I mean, it is on my mind, but the first thing that I did was go get a simple life insurance plan that was going to cover my costs and not stick my boys with it. I mean, I don't understand why you, as parents or spouses, wouldn't have that conversation. And it's definitely a it's a get to have conversation, or it's so much more painful. And you can, my boys, my ex mother-in-law party hopped. It's probably been a couple of years ago now. And my ex had sent a group text to the boys. Mom died this morning at 8:30. One of my boys, I have a iPhone, and he has, so I don't know how the other ones look in a group text, but somehow he saw Nolan's name and thought Nolan had sent the text instead of Nolan being the first in the group that the text went to. And he didn't, it's funny on multiple levels. He wasn't sad or upset with this shocking news that I had passed at 8:30 in the morning. He was mad that no one sent a text saying mom died instead of honoring my wish of calling and saying it's party time. And at first I was like, you weren't like shocked or upset that I wasn't here. And I thought, well, that's because I've done my job. I've talked about it so much and normalized it so much that it's a part of life. And when it happens, they know for years I've been okay with it. That's one of the gifts of that Janae gave me. I'm not afraid of it as much as I'm intrigued by what happens because of things that she said to me. She kept saying towards the end, she had a brain bleed and she wasn't really the same. She wasn't really coherent all the time after it was from the high dose steroids trying to buy time for her. And I remember telling the doctors, like, leukemia can have her. I don't want to see that again. I don't want to experience that seizure and that whole thing again. And she never fully recovered from it. And she just kept saying, there's so many people. Whether she was asleep or awake, she just softly kept saying, there's so many people, there's so many people. And I put her in a wheelchair to take her outside one day, and she said, I'm confused. And I said, what are you confused about, baby? And she said, you're not my real family. My real family's here to get me. And I wanted to grab it. Like, I remember my knee jerk reaction was I wanted to grab her and be like, I'll always be your mom. And then it's like the Holy Spirit or the higher was like, shh, think about it. And then I had a peace to let her go. I mean, she's ready and it's time. And it can be beautiful. And I did. I had a peace that, surmounted human understanding that it was time for her to be with that family. And then we had a friend of mine that morning, on this Sunday morning at church, I think, had heard like to plan a candle vigil, which I did not know had happened until after the fact. But I remember my husband at the time looking out the window and said, you're going to want to see this. And I came to the window, and there were like 200 people singing with lit candles coming down the street and pulling in front of our yard. I just got covered up in goosebumps. This is when I know that heaven, like Janae's still with me, and heaven, or the party, whatever the party is that's happening, like that we're connected to it. When I get
Yeah.
goosebumps like that. But all these candles, these people singing, we went out to, they didn't know that they were right outside the window of the master bedroom, which is where Janae was laying. So even though it seemed like the hospice had left and said the time was getting close, like her organs were starting to shut down, and we went outside and sang with them and prayed with them. And I remember sitting down in the grass, and a friend of mine was sitting next to me, and I call it the breath of the Holy Spirit, because it was a breeze that I was cognizant of, but it moved through my body. Like, it went through my body, and then like I exhaled like out. That's the best way that I can describe it. And my friend sitting next to me said, did you feel that? So I knew it wasn't something that I was like hallucinating or imagining, or,
Yeah.
wasn't tiredness. Like, it was something that happened. And it happened because of this collective love and faith and support that was happening. And so I went in and I laid down and went to sleep with her. And it was the 4 o'clock hour. That same breath set me up out of sleep. I was sleeping, and it just lifted me up, and I have the same feeling that I had out in the yard just hours before moved through me. And I feel like it was in timing with her last breath, or she had just, she had party hopped shortly thereof. And I did not have a sadness. I had like this peace. Her countenance was so soft, almost like a tiny little, just angelic. And I remember because she had said her family was there with her, and she mentioned like wanting to see Jesus or wanting to run. And I told her, when you see him, you'll be able to run. Like run. She said, I can't run. I'm like, you will when you get there, you know. And so it's like the timing of it was there, and it's a divine gift. And people, when they say she lost her bowel cancer, or I've lost my daughter, or define it as tragic, like none of those are the way that I describe the narrative of what my experience was, and what I got to have then, and what I get to do with it now.
And is that, like, I feel like that whole thing is so, so powerful. And I super appreciate, your vulnerability in sharing that, because I think that it's really important that no matter what our stories are behind the passion that we're doing, we have to recognize that more times than not, there is a like visceral type of like feeling when we have this like breakthrough of what's next, whether it's in business, whether it's in life, it a lot of times becomes this like visceral moment, that in the moment we're not necessarily able to like know what's going on, but hindsight is very much like, I know the exact moment, that happened. And that's a super, super powerful thing. How do you feel like it was received while you were filming at the blocks?
Oh, like it is in a lot of places. I mean, the blocks is very deep. I mean, what an experience to get to have,
Mhm.
on a multitude of levels. I think because entrepreneurs, creative, starting, in different places, and because it was, it's a rare thing. It's unheard of. I'm not aware of anybody that's creating the videos like I create, or certainly celebrations are happening that are personalized, and there's a death positive movement that's happening. I haven't like really narrowed to know where that market, or that niche is, where I find more of them. Everybody thinks it's wonderful. Everybody's moved by the story, thinks it's needed, supportive as a cheerleader for me, and yet not that I'm aware of having a conversation, certainly not enlisted me to dream up what a personalized party would look like. And I think it takes a while to educate people and then really understand what it is that I'm doing. It's easy to think, it's a great thing that's needed, and then something different. When people get to see what it is that I create and what I'm talking about doing, and I see the video here, which is
I was actually trying to get a picture from the blocks to come up. And it's not selecting like the right it's not selecting the right thing.
well,
Um
the simple answer is, from the blocks, everybody received what I'm doing, and I felt so loved and supported and celebrated and encouraged to not give up, to keep going, and that I have, this community of people that care very much about supporting me in that.
yeah. Let me see if it'll let me share this other tab here. Show it to me. Oh, come on. It might be because I'm sharing that other screen or the other window. Oh, come on. There it is. So can you talk a little bit about the whole Wacky Wednesday, the
Yeah.
ideology, the vibe of that? Can you talk about that a little bit? Because I think that was one of the most magical things that happened while we were at the blocks. And I loved how everyone just kind of literally jumped on that train. Like literally everybody was
Not
like, yes,
everyone.
let's do this. Let's do this. This is fun. Can you talk a
Yes.
little bit about that?
Sure. I mean, that's part of, I tell people life's a surprise party, and parties are more fun with games. And life's favorite game to play with me is truth or dare, because I'm crazy enough to take the dare and find a new truth. And I really don't care what people think. I didn't know if it would be embraced or loved or not. I had it because the astronauts, the mascot of the blocks, or the branding of the blocks, knew that I was going to come and do a wacky astronaut. I really thought I was going to fly back and do a wacky Wednesday and, fly back. And then I saw that they weren't shooting on Wednesday, and I really wanted the Bloxers to experience it. So did the silly Sunday. It was my what came to me is I do Wacky Wednesday in the middle of a work week, but Sunday was in the middle of our blocks week, and so I could share it that way. And had accessories that I pass out. So this is something I do every week. Janae was missing Spirit Week at school and bummed that she wasn't there for Wacky Wednesday, and it came to me. I just blurted out, "We don't have to be in Sellersburg at school to do Wacky Wednesday. If you want to dress me wacky, I'll dress you wacky, and we'll create our own right here." The funny thing is, at school, everybody is dressed wacky together, and they know why. When we were in the hospital, we were the only two, and nobody had a clue what we were doing. Nurses would come in. I would pass people of other families out in the halls and create smiles in a place that's very sick, sad, stressed, and serious. And we did it each week that we were there until we got to come home after her bone marrow transplant. She party hopped a few months after that, and I wanted to get Wacky Wednesdays into children's hospitals, and I didn't really get that to happen. The local one where I started, I'm not going to get into the story of it, but the dare that came to me afterwards, when that kind of shut down, it's not just the walls of the hospital that are sick, sad, stressed, and serious. There's everywhere people are sad and stressed. And so I said, you can get wacky wherever you are. So get wacky wherever you are. And so the blocks was a perfect place to do that. Many times in the videos and some of the information we got before we went to the blocks, it talked about how stressed you might be, or how overwhelmed, or might be the hardest thing you've ever done. And in my head, because of what I have to measure it to, I wasn't, I knew it was a way that I could help maybe relieve the stress if people were tired or overwhelmed, and have travel with a bag of accessories and hand them out if people want to take a fun picture. Like, I tell people I'm wacky all day, but you can have a whack attack and be wacky for for a photo. And it was really fun to have people jump in there towards the end of the Wednesday. Wes,
Yeah.
I tried to get Wes to put something wacky on. He said he would do a picture, but he wasn't going to do the wacky. And I don't know if you kind of gave me a hard time during part of the class, but um like, don't dress as an astronaut when you go pitch to investors or
Right.
something.
Like, yeah, well.
In my head, I just like the shock factor. And I was like, oh, it'd be so fun when he comes out and starts teaching class if we have hats, sprinkled throughout the audience. And there were people that put them on, and he was like, what happened?
Yeah, I remember him saying something like, what he went to say something to someone and then was like, "Well, wait, what's going on here?" but
Which,
but
I
but
mean,
like, what I love about that from like a branding aspect is that what a freaking way to get the conversation going, right?
well,
Like,
that is the thing in branding and in networking. People don't forget, and it's not. I don't do it to make people pay attention to me. Like, that's another thing that I've gotten to get over, are the narratives that people create. That I'm seeking attention. I mean, the word I remember years ago, and it did affect me for a while, was that I was trying to make money off my daughter's death, and I was like, God. No, if people, that is not at all what I'm doing. And look at my bank account, you'll know that's not true. And what a horrible thing,
yeah.
especially when my heart is so massive for humanity, and I want to serve, and I want to help heal and help people be happy, and for that to be what and I got pushed aside. Like, I know the truth, it doesn't matter if anybody else knows. And it makes me very memorable at networking events or events where I go to. I want to remember names. It wasn't part of my strategy to make me memorable. But lots of people, I mean, I'm known as the Wacky Wednesday lady, the We Get To lady, the surprise party, like, lots of monikers and things. And it's fun. It's not like I get up every Wednesday wanting to do it. It requires a lot of energy. And there's never a Wednesday at the end of it that I am not so grateful that I did it, whether I felt like it or not. I mean, I go out, I put it on to create the smiles because the world is very sad, stressed, sick, and serious. And I really want to contribute to the smiles and the happiness and the peace in the moment and the gratitude for where we're at. Use Janae's
Mhm.
story, use by example, show people that I love this little life of mine and this gift of life. And we're all given surprise presents that are wrapped in pain and disappointment, and it's up to us whether we say thank you and decide to use them. and Wacky Wednesdays is one facet of how I get to do that, and so much joy and amplified. It's we do more together. I mean, it's more fun in a big group picture like that, than it is for me by myself. And the pod, like, even in the pod, we all got whacked out of the pod. So it was fun. I like delivering that kind of unique joy in the way that only I can, because of the life and the experience that has brought me to this point.
Yeah, and I think I like when you talk about, well, I don't like, but I like when you talk about, you know, people aren't going to understand what you do no matter what you do. Not you, like just us in general, right? Like someone, like not everybody understands why I do, well, all of the things that I do, right? But in my heart
Right.
and in my head, I know exactly why I do all these things. And I think it's really important to, for all entrepreneurs to recognize that just because someone doesn't get what they're doing doesn't mean that it's not what they should be doing. And so I really think that, like, especially in the blocks, you know, you have one of the most unique business strategies and plans, and all, like, you have the most unique business structure and story. And I think that down deep, it's actually intimidating for some of us who are doing things in a larger industry where we're the small fish. You're the big ass whale in a much smaller niche, like
Yeah.
you have so much in many ways. You have so much more opportunity than the rest of us do, in certain ways, because you do have a much bigger piece of that pie, because your pie is a lot smaller, and I think it's interesting. People are always going to be shitty, right? Like, we can't get away from shitty people. We can't get away from stupid people. But I think it's interesting because I think that it's easier for someone to judge what someone else is doing than it is for them to open the mindset of, like, even just like absorbing what it is. Like, they don't, they shut that door. They put that curtain down. They're so, because it's easier. I am obsessed with the latter. I am obsessed with, like, tell me more. I want to understand this. I want to, like, have a different perspective. I want to grow. I want to see things differently. And I think that was one of the things that I loved the most about the blocks, was that everybody that was there was very open to, like, ooh, cool. Oh, I never thought
Yeah.
of it that way. Ooh, like, none of us, most of us did not take the easy road at all during the week. At all. Not necessarily because we were kind of forced in this prison to, like, do the things, but at the same time we weren't. I mean, we absolutely weren't. We made a choice. The choice just became a little easier because everyone else was doing it, right? Like, if we were sitting there and we had to choose, like, you know what? I don't really want to go talk in front of people, so I'm just gonna not. That would have been the easy choice. But, like, we all made the decisions to do the hard things, and so many hard things, right? Like, all the public speaking, all of the pop quizzes, all of the learning, all of the networking, all of the things, all of the vulnerability of, actually uncovering a lot of the stories that are behind a lot of these people's businesses. And so many people don't recognize how important their story is in their business, in their passion, in their mission, in their why, in all the things that they're doing. And so, from a brand perspective, you are ahead of so many people because you know exactly why you are doing it. The what doesn't really matter. The what you figure out along the way. The what is always going to
Right.
evolve. Like, so
Right.
many people are chasing the destination. So many people are chasing, like, okay, I'm going to launch this. I'm going to make six figures. I'm going to have 200 clients, and that's going to be awesome. They're giving themselves metrics of a destination. Whereas, you know, some of us are way more along the lines of, like, it is what it is. What's going to happen is going to happen. We're going to go with the flow. We're going to let everything evolve around us because we know that there are plenty of things we can't control. And the journey of that is way more um profitable, not just monetary. Like, we learn from that. We grow from that. Yes, we make money doing that, but, like, people are so quick to forget that the journey is way more important than the destination. And the
That's
people
a
who are
slumber
worried about that
party.
destination do not have a good grasp on their like story of what got them here. And so I
Right.
loved that about you too, because you've got your story, you are proud of your story, you are not afraid to, like pour your passion into all of that. When you tell people that, you don't shy back about it. You are like, let me tell you about me. Like, I love that. I absolutely love that. And I know that's hard. I know that that's, like you said, it's very energy consuming. Um, but the fact that you are so passionate about that refills your energy, right? Recharges you when you're done and
Yeah.
you're ready for the next one.
It's everything's energy, right? And the
Yeah.
energy, like, maybe it's repeating throughout on Wacky Wednesdays. Clearly, there are a lot of people that they want to know what's going on. Where if
Yeah.
I'm dressed normal, there aren't as many people asking, and I'm doing it so that I can share that with them. So I think the repetitive part of the story is part of the energy that's going out. Then you feel the energy of people who doesn't love being loved and seeing smiles and the proof that you're doing what it is that want to do. Like rich in that way when it comes
Yeah.
to I know who I am. I know why I do what I do. I know the truth of the story, whether anybody else does or not. I know that when other people, if they invite me to share with them, and this has happened before, like I have flown on Wacky Wednesday, and I had a couple chase me down after a flight one time because it's not uncommon when I fly and I'm dressed wacky for me to get the flight attendants on board. They're getting wacky. We're having the whack attack in the air basically. They
Yeah.
collect all
That's
the
amazing.
accessories at
A
the end of
whack
the
attack. I
flight.
love that.
They give me the mic to tell them what we're doing, why I'm doing it. Like I just get to share the story with the whole plane. And then we're doing the wacky thing, and then this couple chased me down when we were deboarding it and going for our luggage, and they said, we saw you at the gate before we got on the plane, and we were really hoping you weren't on our flight. And we really hoped that you weren't going to be sitting next to us. But now, after we know this story of why why you look like you do and what you're doing, we'd be honored. Will you like take a picture? Can we put some wacky things on and take a picture? And I know that that happens all the time. I really feel like that's what requires or takes the energy, and why Thursday is like my whack lag day, and I just make it chill for me to kind of recover because I pour
Mhm.
out so much. And I love the pouring out. It's probably the resistance and and feeling the people push back, or feeling the energy of people that don't want anything to do with it,
Mhm.
that sometimes affects me more than pouring out the love and people loving it and the party that's going, all day. And I keep it going. Like there's no other day that I'm out at 8 a.m. and getting back at 8 p.m. because I'm dragging it out or making the party last longer.
Yeah.
Especially if I love the out, it never looks the same. So if it's some ensemble that I think is just really fun, then it goes on the more. And the astronaut it was a ton of fun. I really did enjoy that one.
Well, and I
Um,
I feel like, the risk becomes worth the reward when, you do have those moments where someone literally comes up to you and tells you the truth, like the transparency of like,
yes.
we saw you and we were like, yo. But then like, what a transformation you just made to someone in the world, right? And one thing that I think entrepreneurs forget a lot too, while we're chasing money and titles and destinations and whatever, is like the ripple effect. If you actually care about the things that you're doing, and the way that you're making people feel, the ripple effect of how you're going to change the world is going to happen a lot faster and a lot more powerfully than just becoming rich and throwing money at charitable organizations. I'm not saying don't do that, but I'm saying this ripple effect on mankind, I think, happens faster when we focus more on the way that we are treating people and the way that we are making people feel, and the chances we have to open up the mindset of someone else in the world. And what you just shared is exactly that. Them telling you that, they literally just told you that you opened their mind. That is mind blowing to me. And I would have probably ridden that high for like 3 months of like,
Oh, yeah.
yes,
I
what
mean,
I'm
we can do it
doing
every day.
matters.
I mean, like yesterday, there's two women in particularly that, on an ordinary day, I would not have felt the opening, seen the tears, felt the compassion, and knowing that I made a difference in their day or their life. I mean, handing out the We Get To bands. people months, years after I've given them and I get to band, I'll get an email from somebody that's like, you told me to turn my have tos into get tos, and this is how it happened for me today. And if I party hop today, and I think this is the beautiful thing about life and what I want to support and contribute to in making the change in other people. Like the starfish story, where the kids throwing the starfish in the ocean. Do you know that
Mhm.
story?
I have.
Where
Why don't you tell it for the viewers though in case they haven't?
I mean, it's told in different ways, but basically there's a shadow of a person, looks like they're dancing. An elderly person gets close to them, sees they're throwing in starfish, asks the little boy what he's doing, and he said, I'm trying to save these starfish. And the man laughs and says, "Do you not see how many of them are? You can't save them all." And he said, "Well, I just saved that one, as just made a difference to that one." Um, I know the evidence has come with my heart pouring open to this mission that I have and the passion that I have that's different than before Janae's diagnosis. I did faux finishes and help people, decorate their homes, and it was fun, but I always felt like there was something more, and I didn't know what the something more was that would be impactful. That room's going to change in 2 years, but I felt like there was something I wanted to do that was like life changing, I didn't know what it was until Janae's journey. And then I knew. And so, I won't move off that mark again. And every time that I go out into this surprise party life, it could be at the gas station or the parking lot. I have two skeletons dressed for a party in the back of my car. And people this time of year think I'm really into Halloween, but anybody that knows me know, or people in town know that they're there year round for me to promote that life's the surprise party that doesn't end with the last breath and the spirit party hops on to the next venue. And they're the ones that allow me to do that. But I'm making a difference, and I can say that with gratitude and being humble too, that I get to do what I do and make the difference that I do. If I party hop today, I'm content. I'm happy. I know that I've made a dent, but that I've impacted in a positive, loving, peaceful way that the collective needs. Um, and I'm just honored and grateful that I get to do it in the crazy, unique way that I do.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. So what, the definition of having a breakthrough is, having that sudden dramatic and super important discovery or like development. Can you think of a moment during your time filming the blocks that you feel like you had just a major breakthrough in either just your personal your personal life or business, probably business, because I feel like that's what we were like stuck to. But do you feel like you had a specific breakthrough moment while we were filming?
I think it was with the niching, even though I haven't created the marketing to get directly to that niche, to
Mm-hmm.
get down to that first pin. When you use the bowling analogy, I niche so far down. That's the funny thing. That I feel like the judges were like, "Come back, that's a little too far." Like, do you mean it's the first pin or not? I think for me, the clarity of the breakthrough came like I don't think there's many people that I meet that don't say that what I'm doing is so cool or needed, and it's still not working with me. I feel like at the breakthrough there was that where it seems like it's hospice, that's still farther down the road. Like everybody's not going to have a diagnosis. Like I'm not saying that there's an age to think of like seniors or a diagnosis, which is like what people early on think of when they hear what I do and where the
Mm-hmm.
market might be. I think it's more like near death experience, like people that have had NDEs or, that are like not afraid of dying. And it's not hard at all to talk about it because it's not even like real. This is all a dream that we're going to wake up from anyway. And so
Yeah.
to create the marketing for that, to be more engaged and involved in the conversations on Facebook groups or on LinkedIn or wherever, where that is would behoove me to get on it.
Yeah.
um, so I would say that was the breakthrough, was the day of the niche, because I hadn't really gone in that direction before. I was more in the on the front that would be those back pens that you eventually get to. Those aren't the ones that are the
Which
movers
is
and
very
shakers,
common.
and their
That's
energy
very
changes.
common. I work with companies on their brands and their marketing strategies all the time, and that is so common because that's easier. Like it's all kind of this common cycle of like, just like human life and business life, like we all do the things that are easier more naturally. And we kind of have to go through the steps a little bit more specifically to be able to do the harder things. So don't feel like you're the only one that has like overshot the first pin, because like we all have. We
Well,
all have overshot
it
that.
seems like the low hanging fruit initially is, like that you what they call the low hanging fruit seems like it's the first pin, and it's not. The low hanging
No,
fruit's on the
the
back.
low
You know what I
hanging
mean?
fruit's the one you can reach. It's the easy one.
Right. But so that was the breakthrough for me, as a whole different market or way of looking at where to target my, energy and my focus.
Yeah, for sure. What was your favorite part about, being part of the cast and filming in Tulsa? What was your favorite part about the week?
It's not like a narrow it's the people. I mean, it's the experience in general. I mean, I treasure that time, and I didn't feel like it was prison, or like it was something I had to do, or it felt like, I mean, I know it was like long hours, I guess, but it still felt like a vacation or a party to me. And it was because of the people. It was because of the relationships that were forming, and just I mean, I would imagine every season probably feels that way, maybe, but the just the collect who we were together as a unit. I mean, and he's built it that way, I'm sure, to facilitate those conversations and that kind of bond that happens. So for me, the bond that I created with the people and the experience and the joy, I hated for it to be over. I remember, I don't cry a lot. I used to. I more laugh, and not that tears are bad or emotions are, but I remember when we all sat down the last night before they started announcing winners, or like I started crying, not wanting it to be over. And I was like, well, it's not over yet. Like, don't go, don't start being sad. Now you can cry tomorrow, but I really did hate for it to end. I just thought it was an incredible experience. A wealth of knowledge. When I came back, I didn't share, with some people I did, but I had like over 70 people back me to get me to go have that experience. I would not have been there without the network that I have here in my community, and their support. And I it increased tenfold there. I came back and told them I don't feel like it was business changing. I mean, it is business changing, but I think it was life changing for me. I think it was a pivotal moment for me to be rejazzed and refueled. Like I said, I went into it discouraged, and I left there so full in so many ways.
Yeah. And I think I think a lot of people felt that way. And I think for me, it was a definite reminder of, coming home and making sure that the rooms and the people I'm spending my energy on here are the ones that I should be spending that on, because, you know, um, life is short. We only have so many hours in a day and so much energy to give. And if we're constantly in environments where it's energy draining and not energy
Right.
charging, that we can only live like that for so long. And so for me, coming back was very much so kind of auditing my time and my energy and where it was going, because it was very life changing. It was very eye opening. It was all of the things, right? All of the feels. Besides not wanting it to end, what was the hardest part for you for the whole week?
Hardest part. I think, hmm,
Or the most challenging, not necessarily like everything, like
well,
something being
I
super
will
hard, but
say
the
that
most
was the
challenging.
most challenging or interesting to me is, I used to be so competitive. Like, I didn't do anything without, I wouldn't show up to come in second. Um, I kind of let go of all that probably from day one. The most challenging thing, it was in the pod, staying on. It wasn't always me pulling the judge off of the task of asking the question. You remember when Wes was like, keep your answers short and sweet. Even if I was short and sweet, the subject and what I'm doing was so intriguing that the judges would, either one of us like, I don't feel like there was a day where we got through all the questions that they were supposed to ask in order to judge for their, for the
The
points.
rubric, yeah.
Yeah, the rubric did not apply to Denise because every time I sat down, Joe was my judge the first day or my mentor the first day. And as soon as I sat down, I reminded him of his favorite, I think her name was Mabel or something, his favorite friend back home. And so the conversation went a whole different direction. And then the second day, um, there were tears. The judge was grandmother had party hopped, not, and so it went a whole different kind of way. Um, which I don't mind. That comes with me. I've learned,
Yeah.
it is what the conversations that were meant to have or that were, or, already divinely appointed happened when it came to me, the points. But I still was thinking I did well enough that maybe I was going to end up on stage. And wanting to in order to share with the people that I hadn't met one to one. We all wanted that. I'm not somebody that has a hard time speaking in public or doesn't want to get up and share the story and impact as many people. And so I guess the hardest part would be not that I went home deflated or defeated or to my room deflated or defeated at the end of the day, or felt like I got to get up and prove myself today, but probably that was for me the more challenging part.
Yeah. So after leaving, we gained all this knowledge. We met all these people. What has life been like for you after the blogs? What have you been up to for the last 3 months?
Not enough. That's not true.
Story of an entrepreneur.
No, that's not true. Speaking of my network that I love, and they don't drain my energy. I'm charged by people, and like the blocks and everybody receiving what I do and it's needed and just propping me up with authentic joy and love and my laughter or whatever. Like I feed on that and love that. And I've reined way back in the amount of time that I'm out networking and being social because it's not creating business. It's the relationships that I love, and I get to be more strategic and keep my Tasmanian butt behind the desk a couple days a week instead of looking where the party is out there to socialize and hug and laugh and have conversations. So that's changing for me. Um, I'm I'm glad for the seasons and that fall's coming and it's cooler and I'm not gonna want to be outside. It's gonna be cozied up in here and be in
Yeah.
my office and knocking out more things. So fall and winter, the way that I wrap up the year, will be more evident of what I utilize from the blocks and I'm putting into action that maybe I haven't. I've only like tipped my toes into the pool instead of
Yeah. Well,
diving
we
into
we
all.
we filmed in the summer, and then
Yes.
summer into fall. This is always a really busy time of year. Even before the holidays start up, just this like late summer, fall is always crazy. There's always a lot going on, in our personal lives, in the world, like literally everything. The branding expert in me has a question for you though. What are you doing when you are out at these networking events and you're having these conversations? Like, are you handing out business cards or postcards, or
Oh,
like, are you handing out anything?
I have 4 different things. So it depends. Like I have the book. I don't know what pieces you got. I have a bookmark. People love the bookmark because it's different. And it's got Janae's picture with the I get to message on one side and mine on the other. So my contact, it depends on the event and what the theme or who the speaker is or what the
Yeah.
particular event is. If it's an evening event, a day event. I have square business cards that and people always call. I mean, I majored in graphic design and commercial art, so branding is big for me and I love having all these pieces or a whole little kit if I want to hand it off. So I have a rack card. So if I'm going to be talking about videos and I want people to see the price points and the different options on my videos, I have a rack card. And then because it's surprise invite and I'm promoting life as a party, I also have an invitation that says you're invited to a party to die for. And when you open it up, it says why you'd want to consider a celebration instead of a funeral and who my market would be. If you want the phone call to be it's party time instead of she's dead. So I've got different marketing pieces and branding pieces. It's again, it's going to be getting in front of the market and the people that are ready to invest in something, and
Yeah.
instead of putting it off, that are more passionate about it. Or I'm like, I'm volunteering at an event next week that's called Aging 2.0, going to be a lot of people talking about death there. So that could lead to some um, bigger conversations. There's a capital communication, something where you'll be talking to people, so I trust, like, none of this has been really anything that I have planned as much as me showing up. Like, it's
Yeah.
evolved, right? I started out as an author and a speaker when Janae first party hopped, and it was going into schools and athletic teams and leadership conferences, and sharing the positive perspective and turning have tos into get tos, and words that you use that you could substitute for, a stronger, energetic word. And then in 2016, thought I was getting ready to party hop, found out there wasn't a solution, went from a nonprofit sharing we get to a for profit that was focused more on death. It's been me following the breadcrumbs and trusting. I wasn't given the vision, and I wasn't given this narrative and this story and experience, that I'm not being guided exactly at the right timing to, for it to come into fruition, to be big business too. I mean, I know that it's not a matter of it being like a grind or a struggle or
Yeah.
frustrating, matter of fact, last week, I don't know if you have, I have a lot of different things that I do, and staying connected with the bigger source than the human condition or the human mind. And I was listening to a podcast years ago where, if you believe you're made in the image and likeness of God or the creator, or, this universal love, that you can say to yourself if it's comforting. And I was skeptical at first. Like, I was listening, and he was having this caller that called in and say, okay, you're made in the image and likeness of God. So you're the expression of God as Jessi, and I am as Denise, and we're all unique in the thumbprint that we are for this expression of the divine. And so you can say, Denise, this is the sound of God's voice. And what he had the woman say is, there's nothing you could do that would cause me to love you any less. I think she felt like, with her relationship with her daughter, there were things that she couldn't mend, or if she was lovable. And, so he had her repeat that. And I repeated that, and that was kind of powerful. And so I start doing that with my business too. Like, what I want to hear the divine say, like, it's coming. Like, everything that you've contributed has been building, and it's just a matter of where it's just going to wash over you, the abundance, that you desire, or the ease and the flow. It's here, and the rest of my days, I'm 56. So I think I'm getting ready. The cuss is getting ready to happen, and then it's going to be, bliss. I have moments of bliss, but I have had a lot of seasons that maybe, I got to seek it really hard, and it's not going to be hard to find. It's going to be very easy. So I'll look forward to updating and celebrating, on how that unfolds, and on certain things that we learned at TheBlox and that I will be implementing, will help, push that wave right on over.
Yeah, and I love that you were talking about being a speaker, because I feel like that's the one thing that came to my mind as a brand expert too, was like, not as much trying to sell the product as much as selling the mindset shift, and becoming an authority in that in later life industry of helping people change their mindset about death in general. And that thought leadership turns, like, can more easily turn into sales, but like excuse me, focusing on, maybe some of the speaking gigs or things like that, that are
Right.
thought leadership, that are truly, making an impact in there, will also trickle down into, wanting to work with you, because I do feel like you're someone that, like, when you are in the room with you, I'm like, I want to talk to her. I want to
Well,
talk
I'm
to her
hoping
energy.
well, thank you for affirming that, because I'm volunteering for this event next week in order to get into the door and into the consideration to be a speaker next year, because
Yeah.
it comes every year. And so
Mm-hmm.
to volunteer and make connections and lead,
And it
find the
just
right
takes one
people.
time, one person, one
That's what I'm
time, one
saying. It
conversation.
will. Exactly that. A few years ago, I was 2015 actually, when I was speaking more, and I was like, can I do this as a living, or make enough that this is my thing? And I remember I had spoken at a statewide thing in 2012. And then at the end of 2015, I get this random email after speaking to a speaking coach. And he was like, you get to stop charging for whether it's a 30-minute presentation, a keynote, or a workshop. Like it's your whole day regardless. So
Yeah.
I'm going to challenge you. The next proposal that comes is $4,000, and it doesn't matter if it's 30 minutes or if it's 2 hours or whatever, because your day, I was within the hour. I got an email from somebody that had been at that 2012 talk wanting me to come speak at their annual wrap up, their Christmas staff thing. And I threw out that $4,000 number. Like, oh my gosh, we're a nonprofit. I'll need to talk to my director and get back with you. And within the hour, she called back and said, it's a go. And then before that day was over, I got another email from somebody else from that group. There were chapters. So I spoke at the statewide one in 2012.
Okay.
Both of these women had been at the 2012 one, but they didn't know each other. Because when the second one reached out, I was like, "Have you been talking to Julie? Julie just hired me to come speak at her December staff." And she said, "No, I don't know Julie. I just heard you in 2012, and um, once you come, our staff really could use this." And so I told her the same thing. And like in that day, it was 8 grand. It does happen, like wildly, just like you said, one conversation, one person, one Instagram post. I mean, look at it, all of us. You see one post, you're on Instagram every day, and all of a sudden you see a BloxFam thing and think that sounds, and you know what I mean? And on a dime, everything changes on a dime.
Where are you located again?
I'm near Louisville. I'm in Indiana, just across the river from Louisville. It's easier to say Louisville than New Albany, but
Yeah, I'm from Chicago, but I don't live in the city. I live in the burbs. Like I get it.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so I just filmed and photographed our local TEDx chapter event like 2 weekends ago, and if you have never considered TEDx, I can totally see your party hop
yeah.
idea, like
Thank you for
ideology.
that again. I
You
went to
should do
Cincinnati.
it.
That was so funny. Goes back to the Wacky Wednesday. I auditioned for the Cincinnati one. Mm, I want to say it was 2016. It was before Surprise Invite. It was before I felt like I was getting ready to party hop. So it was 2016, and their audition was on a Wednesday, and I changed everything. I spoke from the stage, dressed wacky, and the funny thing is, um, like speaking of competition or whatever, or narratives, like the audience was so engaged. They laughed, they awed, there was like standing ovation at the end. And then I didn't make the cut, and it wasn't like I went home pouting. I think then I thought I was dying because I was at party hop and my perspective went away. And then it's time for, thank you for saying that, and stay on me about it. Keep me, because I had let go of Wacky Wednesday. I had let go of We Get To, and I had let go of Ted, and it's all coming back. Like it's circling back around when I thought something had served its purpose or the season was over. When I first started Surprise Invite, I stopped doing Wacky Wednesdays because I was afraid it would muddy up the marketing and people be confused, and they would think the celebrations that I'm creating look like I do on a Wednesday, and how would that work in marketing to keep it clear. And they came back, and and not by my plan, a random thing happened, and then more people wanted them, and more people wanted them, and then I kept doing them. And here they're back to stay. And the same with We Get To. I hadn't been speaking, and then people are asking me to come speak and share that We Get To. And um, this is like the third time the TEDx thing has come up. I know it's time for me to get back in there and to do the TEDx, because I love it. I mean, it's not, I love it.
It
I've
was
been,
very cool, very powerful, very I don't know how big every local chapter is. Like I know there's one in Chicago, like downtown, and then this one was in Arlington Heights, which is like a suburb of Chicago. And I think the cap of that seating was only like 100 people. But I don't know if like some of them are big and small. But it was just an incredible experience to be a part of the team, to be filming it and photographing it. It was really cool. Two people came up to me and asked me if I would ever consider like being a TEDx speaker, and I was like, "What? No!" And then I was like, "Maybe. I don't know."
yeah, I mean,
So
that's when
like,
you
it's a
look
mindset
back, when
shift.
talk about hindsight. I competed in 4-H contests, speech contests, back in the third, fourth, fifth grade. And I remember this is wild, and it's also something that if everybody looked to see the breadcrumbs of their lives, like what was in place and already in motion. Um, I think it was the fifth or sixth grade, and I picked a very heavy adult like topic. It was like child abuse and drug addiction. Like those were two different ones, you know, as a fourth grader or fifth grader that I was very invested in wanting to learn more and to make a speech that would make a difference. And this one year I made it to state. I think mine was child abuse that year. And I made it to the state. You know, you do your little local community, like city one, and then regional. And I made it to the state. I think it was in Lexington, Kentucky, the state competition. And the girl that won, hers was about her pet bunny rabbit. And I remember leaving there going, "How the, you know what I mean? A bunny rabbit? Like that's who cares about her bunny?" I was, you know, fifth grade, but very young, comfortable speaking on heavy topics in front of audiences to make a change. So it's
And never
wild
at
to
that age do we think this is going to be
no.
useful later in
A year,
life.
I
And
mean,
then
years went by. I wasn't doing speeches. I was inducted into the Hall of Fame. I remember um, in 2000 for high school. And I remember when I wrote that speech and presented it, like being lit. You know, you're in your element of um, mastery and bliss when you're that lit and elevated about getting to have an experience. Now, when I speak, I don't have a speech that it's scripted or that I've memorized because I like to move, and I may hear something in the introduction before I'm up there, or the speaker before me, or something that I want to introduce. And so I don't get real bogged down with studying and memorizing and rehearsing and acting out some script. It's more always from the heart in general with bullet
mhm.
points or like 3 points I'm going to stick to or something. But yeah, it's been in my whole life there. And the tribute video, I did mine first. Like when I thought I was getting ready to party hop, and eulogies that go like I didn't know so and so, but what I found out from the family this week, I was like, I want the story told. I want, who are the funniest storytellers, or who do I know that's going to be fun as they share something about me? And I reached out to, probably like 15 friends or family. Said, what's one word you would use to describe me and why, and a story that you would share with somebody that's never met me? Because I would imagine there'll be as many people that don't know me that are there for my voice than actually knew me at this celebration that will. And so I
Mhm.
wanted to create this fun video. It's basically like a roast of me, which that part I kind of knew was going to happen. The fun surprise in it. So I've made this video. It will be a surprise. My boys have not seen it. They won't see it until after I've party hopped. I did it to be a surprise gift for them, not knowing the surprise gift that it would be for me in the present. Um, and one of the surprises, one of the elements of surprise was what I just said about the speaking. Like I've been the same person my whole life and didn't realize it. The world's reflecting back to me in the stories that I've always been somebody that was for the underdog, that was going to show up and want to make something better because I was a part of it. Um, to go back and see high school friends I haven't seen for 30 years and them describe me as that from high school and me not realize that was a really cool, self-affirming, healing, beautiful gift to me to want to continue to be more of that. If I should fall into the slumber party and forget who I am and what I came for, that video is a beautiful reminder, and that's not why I created it. Just a fun surprise packed in it.
That's so amazing. I have to applaud you for being just so open and vulnerable and willing to share your story, because what your story is doesn't matter as much as the inspiration you lay on everyone else to share their story as well. And I feel like because you have such a vulnerable story in such a specific industry, you're really truly doing so much more than what you're doing. You are inspiring a lot of us to really kind of like take a stronger hold of our own stories and our own reasoning for the things that we're doing, and bring that to light a little bit, own that, live that, share that, because you are essentially starting that ripple effect of sharing your story and owning your story and living up to that story. So for that, I thank you, because I really truly do feel like every time I have a conversation with you or with someone else in an industry like this, like I'm more inspired to show the stuff that people don't know and to talk about the things that people don't normally talk about, because I think that's where growth happens in ourselves, in our business, and in our world. So I feel like I just like mega props to you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart, and everybody else's who's not, always the nicest to say. Even I feel like the people who like judge it and put it down, they secretly thank you too, because now they're kind of thinking about it, but they don't want you to know they're thinking about it. They're thinking about it. They're thinking about the
And that's none of
astronaut.
my business, right? It's none of my business if they do or if they don't. The hope is that they do and to not be affected. In the early days, I would have been more affected by it. Now, like I said, I think part of it's maturity, like age. You've had enough of it where you don't plug into that, you don't react to that anymore.
Yeah.
Or the only thing that we can't change what somebody else's opinion is, or
Yep.
what their thought is, or what their narrative is, as much as controlling how you react to it. And more my reaction is, where is the peace for this? Like, where do I find peace on this? And most of the
Yes.
time I
I
can
love that.
regulate and find it pretty quickly. Sometimes it might take a little bit longer, but I always land in the place of authentically knowing who I am and having come to this place where I love who I am. And that was quite a journey to get there. And to be comfortable saying it,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, but yeah, so I really appreciate the opportunity to share with you, and I'm very
Yes.
grateful for, yes, you affirming the joy and the energy exchange. It's certainly palpable, then and now. So thank you so
Yes.
much.
Well, I think that in the show notes, I want you to send me whatever links I can share with other people so that they can, get a better idea of this as well. But if somebody
Uh-huh.
is vibing with it and they are just like vibing with your energy, like like I would, what is the best way for them to reach out for you? Are you on a specific platform more than others?
It's Facebook and Instagram. It's Surprise Invite and Denise Metzger. But if really to have the conversation and a vibe, I would say shoot me an email at celebrate@surpriseinvite.com. That's going to stand, or even a DM if you find me on one of the social media platforms. And that's something that I think is changing for me a little bit too. More is to create more on YouTube or in newsletters than to be on social media. And I would
Mhm.
want to stay connected, so celebrate at surpriseinvite.com and say, yes, I want a conversation. Or I have that are coming back too, like this circle of what I think has served and gone and come back. But I have these A to Z's of living better every day in every way. And like I say, when we live differently, we'll die differently. And I created these right after Janae Party Hop because somebody suggested, like, you with grace and faith and strength, like people are looking to you and wanting to know how you're doing it, and how would you teach them or how would you show them. And so I created these A to Z's that let's say by the end of the year I have them done. Cards, I want cards for these A to Z's, as a tool or a fun practice. So the A is to accept and appreciate adversity. One of my favorites is the V. It's value but vacate the valley. I love that one.
Love that.
Nobody's really loving to be in the valley. And you can value and vacate it. Like, what is the gift that you can do, and then get out. Like, don't stay in there and host the pity party or think that you can't do it. They're all good. There's maximize the mornings, another one. Notify your network. I'm going out of alignment or out of the order, but they're good. And to shoot me an email and say, I want the A to Z's. I've got a cute little poster of the A to Z's until I have the cards. And very passionate.
Yes.
I'm very passionate
You
about those too.
do me a favor and you send me an email with all of those, like with those things that you want to share, and I will make sure that they go in the show notes, because I for one really want to see it, and B, I think other people will want to as well. So Denise, thank you so much for taking the time today, to sit down and chat through this,
Absolutely.
and to
My
kind of just
pleasure.
reminisce of,
I
our
love it.
time in Tulsa and just everything that we kind of took out of it. So I will link everything in the show notes for you guys. Until next time, I will see you guys later.